Okay. So I'm gonna give you guys a brief overview of this, and this is a slide that I did for Drupal Camp Stanford last year. Um, this is my blog, my phone, stuff. Magento, Drupal. There's a bunch of that, right? Now, how many of you are familiar or have used or are using EC2 right now?
Just started.
Okay, how many of you know what is EC2? Okay. So I want to actually tailor this so that it does not bore you guys. So it's basically EC2 is a utility computing environment. It allows you to have a server for a certain amount of time and pay only for that much time for the memory, for the processor, for the hard disk that you use, and it comes from Ether. It goes away in Ether, right? Essentially, if you don't save it, it's gone forever. If you want to save it, there is way to save it. And if we have time, I will show you how you can leverage some scripts and stuff like that to save your entire machine as is and bring it up in the state you left it. Um, so that's EC2. It's this brilliant environment that Amazon started, I guess, in 2006 or so. And what I basically think someone like the likes of Microsoft, Google, or someone should have started it, but instead Amazon ended up doing it. And I don't think anyone else has a computing platform uh, with the parallel that Amazon has at this point, with the flexibility that it has, with the feature set that it has for people who even just want to dabble and start learning a few things without spending an enormous amount of money. So to me, that's a very great environment. It is on-demand computing. It can get you auto scaling, load balancing for demand spikes. You can automate repetitive tasks. Um, if you see a web spike happening at certain times, or a web spike is usually preceded by a CPU spike and a memory spike, you can set those parameters and you can have an elastic load balancer, um, and you can fire up the exact same machine that you want programmatically. Bring the new machine up when the spike happens after 2 minutes of the spike or 5 minutes of the spike, make it uh, go against the load balancer, and so now you have two machines serving the same pages. Now this brings some architecture issues and what have you, but if this is the web layer and there is a single dynamic database layer with a single machine in RDS, these are some things that are very much leverageable. There are people I know, startups like gumgum.com, that actually are exclusively on Amazon's EC2. And what they do is the largest image ad network. So they paint images, they paint an ad on top of images of celebrities and what have you. These guys use Amazon's EC2 to process these graphics and understand each pixel of the graphic. And so in the middle of the night, when they are doing the imports of the graphic and doing some processing, they can fire up programmatically 75, 80 servers on Amazon, do the processing, get that data into their database or their key store, and shut those 75 instances to only have 20 when they all come back on in the morning. And this is all done programmatically. So they are using what they actually want at the time they wanted, and then it's destroyed. So it bundles with something called S3, which is called the Simple Storage Service. So S3 can couple up like a CDN, content delivery network for your images, JavaScript, and assets that are basically, if you want them spread across the world and you want to serve them from certain places for certain access. If you have a heavy Japanese traffic and you only want those images and those things to load from the Japanese cache, you can do it with EC2. And Drupal has, I believe, very good S3 plugins for redirecting some of your CSS pieces and content pieces from a CDN. Uh, so the place where you manage your account is called the AWS Management Console. It's the central location to all your different apps. So your typical AWS Amazon Web Services account comes bundled with EC2, which is Elastic Cloud Compute, which is the place where all your servers are. S3 is your storage. RDS is your relational database service where you are buying MySQL uh, for the time you want to use it without having to manage and database admin MySQL. Amazon does DBA stuff for you for RDS. So, how many of you know instance types? So there is a concept of instance types in Amazon. Different ways are classified the different kinds of machines. So there's an on-demand instance, a Linux on-demand instance price on US East, and the US East data center of Amazon is the Virginia data center. Up until now in the US, it was the cheapest data center. Just a couple of months ago, they opened a new data center up in Oregon, which is just as cheap as Virginia. The one in the Bay Area is much more expensive. So an on-demand Linux instance in Virginia or Oregon would cost you 8.5 cents an hour. Okay, a reserved instance in those two places, if you reserve an instance for 3 years, you have to pay an upfront non-refundable fee for $350. You are going to get that machine. The smallest instance that you can get, or the second, the M1.small, the one above the smallest, is going to be running you 3 cents an hour after the $350 for 3-year charge. So this is the kind of tiered pricing. Then there is something called spot instances. They are relatively new instances. So essentially, you can fire up something, you can buy a machine on the spot, and the spot price is usually very, very inexpensive. So for example, the same machine that was 8.5 cents an hour could be as less as 0.7 cents an hour on spot. Now, so then you set a bid price on spot, and I'll show you how that is done when I get into the demo. But what it actually does is, if your bid price is not reached, you can keep the machine as long as that. If the bid price is reached during the hour or any time after, during the instance being on, the instance will get shut off automatically. Your machine is gone. Right? So if you have not backed up, you're gone. Everything is gone. There are ways people architect it, and I'm going to show you how people can leverage something like that. Even though the machine may go down, you can use a sniffer, and you can use backups up until 5 or 2 minutes ago. And if the backup exists, you can bring up a new machine programmatically, attach the hard drive of the previous machine that you have saved 5 minutes ago, and the machine is back up without you even being involved. So I'm sure eventually there will be companies around just figuring out how to use spot instances in the cheapest possible way, because and if you can move it around the world, because Amazon now has data centers in South America, North America, Japan, Singapore, Europe. If you figure out how to chain them around, right, now that's gold. It's so inexpensive. It could be as less as $5 a month for a micro instance, right? So there is a lot of incentive to build something on top of spot instances. So what are these different types of instances based on how big the machine is, how big the computer is, or your server is? A t1.micro can give you 2 ECUs, or elastic compute units, basically the processor. How much processor? 2 processor units with 600 megs of RAM and a variable EBS storage. So since you guys are very new to AWS, I'm going to only tell you things about EBS. If you have never known anything else other than EBS, for now you don't need to know. Just remember, anytime you start a machine, you want to start with an EBS. It is called persistent storage. The other type of storage is called block storage. Block storage is not persistent. if something happens to your machine, if your machine experiences an Amazon downtime or something, there is no guarantee that you will be back up with that storage and any content of that hard drive will ever come back. So EBS does away with that. EBS is persistent storage. If you have an EBS volume, there are ways you can back it up, there are ways you can persist it. So just know about EBS and don't worry about the other block storage for now. If you ever start a machine, start it as an EBS machine.
What's EBS?
Elastic block storage. Okay? So then there is M1.small. It's one compute unit, 1.7 gigs of RAM, and 160 gigs of not block storage, it is called instance storage. Okay, so that's my typo there. Then M1 large, M1 extra large, M2 extra large. Anything with an M starting with M is higher in memory. So M1 large will be about 7 gigs of memory. Okay, with 4 compute units. C1 medium, C1 extra large, C1 double extra large, they are all machines which are higher in processing power. So process intensive jobs and process intensive sites, you want to be on these. Okay, memory intensive ones, you want to be on those instances. As you go from top to bottom, your cost starts increasing exponentially. So you have to be very wise about the machine you choose initially and the machine that you want to continue running it. So your whole pricing strategy will depend on what do you start with. Do you buy a on-demand instance, a micro instance, an on-demand instance or a reserved instance and what have you. So there is a lot of that goes on. Now they also have something called cluster and cluster GPU things, which probably we won't cover here because those are things that are very intense computational jobs that they run, and maybe Drupal is not that audience for that. Okay, so I think Amazon should probably pay for my bills on AWS because I'm going to advertise something. For every one of you who just signed up for an account or who don't have an account on Amazon, Amazon gives you one t1.micro free, a full free machine for 1 year, including bandwidth cost and everything else, the storage, everything is included with it. Okay, unless you start spiking at 50,000 or 5 million hits a day or something, you have a free machine on Amazon, t1.micro, if you have not signed up. So it's a t1.micro spot. Okay, then I'm going to a spot instance. Until recently, if you got a t1.micro spot instance, and I ran my educator.com blog on a spot instance for 9 months, uninterrupted, for $5 a month. And then one day the spike happened over my bid price after 9 months, and my machine went down. But I had a backup of the EBS, and I was able to bring it up after 2 hours, and I was back in business. But for people who cannot take the downtime, you do not want to be on a spot instance. But for people who already have an account and things like that, and you have used Amazon before, and you're not eligible for T1 for the micro free, then you can still experiment it on US West or US East for as less as $5 a month. M2 4x extra large, right? That may run you as much as $1,400 a month. That type of instance.
Is that on demand or spot?
That's an on-demand instance price, $1,400 a month. So then there is other things that you need to think about costing wise. 10 cents for data that comes in, and there is a tiered system of how much. There is first 1 GB is 10 cents out, then 12 cents after the 1 GB, and so on. Another piece that you want to know, very important. If you have your database server distinct from your web server, you want to be in the same availability zone, and I will show you exactly what the zone means. If you are in US West 2A for your web machine, your a database machine should also be in US West 1A. If not, you will incur charges moving your data between the availability zones. So when the web request is made from the database to fetch a piece of content, you are going to incur charges.
Now it says 10 cents for data in. Is that for every megabyte or how does that work?
10 cents per gig.
Oh, okay.
Per gig. And I'll actually confirm with you on the AWS pricing page. It is per gig in. I'm actually going to do a 11.010 or 11.04, the Oneric Ubuntu. I'm going to start a spot instance. I'm going to start it as an Ubuntu machine. I'm very comfortable with Ubuntu Linux. If you are comfortable with Red Hat or if you're comfortable with CentOS, it's your choice. It should not matter as much. I'm going to install Apache MySQL client only. I am not going to install MySQL server. I'm going to install MySQL client, PHP, CURL, maybe not PHP myadmin. I'm going to talk about what is the public IP and DNS of this instance. If we get to the EBS piece of backing it up, the last two, if we have time, I'm going to try to demonstrate these two. So this is the one I'm going to do, connect to RDS instead of local MySQL. And now I will move to the demo piece. So I'm logged into my Amazon account and I'm deliberately logged into US West Oregon. I am actually running a couple of servers on US East. I'm running 3 instances on US East, but I want to do this here. So when you log in, post login, you'll be brought to the section, either to S3 or wherever you are. You want to click on EC2 tab. Okay. Now I want to launch an instance. Okay. So in order to launch an instance, I need to know, I want to launch an Ubuntu instance, as I said. This is where you go, elastic.com. This is Eric Hammond's website. Eric Hammond has done a lot of early work. He's a guy in SoCal who was the former CTO of Rent.com. He did a lot of early work when Amazon came out to package Ubuntu server for Amazon. Eventually, Canonical, the company that owns Ubuntu, took it over, but he still is involved in all the builds. Here you have for different zones, you have a machine ID. Okay, for different zones. We are in US West. I'm going to use the EBS boot. It's a 32-bit instance. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to community AMIs. I'm going to search for it. It is the 1110 server. You can find it. It's the Ubuntu platform. I'm going to select it. Okay. Here is where I say how many instances do I want. And by the way, if anyone I think goes above 10 instances, Amazon wants to know about you. So I don't believe you can fire up more than 10 instances by this unless you personally make a request to Amazon. Because a lot of people end up firing more instances than they need. They incur a huge bill on their card and they freak out. So I believe the 10 is still the threshold. And if you want more instances than 10, you have to make a return request to Amazon. So I have the ability to start these 3 instances because I selected the 32-bit AMI. Okay. If I selected the 64-bit AMI, I would see more selections here. Okay, so I'm going to start a micro instance here. Because I'm starting, this is the server that is going to be my web and application server, the Drupal server. Okay, I'm going to request it as a spot instance. Okay, look at what it tells me. The current price is 6 to 10 cents an hour, right? So I'm going to do a bid of $2 an hour. It already tells me it's a high bid price, but I'm going to ignore it. Okay.
That's not 6 to 10 cents. That's
0.6 to 0.1 cents. Sorry,
1 cent. Yeah.
I'm obviously not reading it right.
So max price is the max price you would pay per hour?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Why is it saying very high price, high bid price? Your max price for this bid is high. Did you know that you can get charged over the on-demand price? It tells you that. So the on-demand price is lesser than this price. But for now, because I don't want this demo to go badly, I'm going to let the bid price be high. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be charged $2 an hour.
Yeah.
It still will charge me whatever the pricing is at that point.
That just means that you won't get your server taken away from you.
Up until the bid price reaches $2.
$2, yeah.
In instances like this, the bid price can go as high as 10 or 15 bucks an hour.
Oh.
It has happened and the server will shut down.
Oh, okay.
So I'm only covered till $2 per
And
hour.
But what makes it go over is by data coming in, data going out.
Now, he requests 55 servers. She requests 2,000 servers. He is going to request 5,000 servers and you request 10,000 servers. Suddenly. There are other people who are requesting more servers than there is capacity for. So the price goes up based on that. What is the demand of computing at an instance at Amazon for that particular instance? So that's very complex. There's no way for Amazon to know that. There's no way for Amazon to let us know that. Right? So that's that. But it's still very cheap, right? I mean, 0.6 cents an hour. Okay, so continue. This is a screen where I'm going to just let it go. Okay, this is another very important step. I'm going to say t1.micro Drupal demo. It asks you to create this key pair. This is very important. You create a key pair with a name of the key that you can remember, or at least if you are familiar with that name, that would be good, because you have to create and download it.
So you're basically creating an RSA key on the...
Type of. So this window says that I created it, and it's here. It's in my downloads. So then choose one of your security groups. Everyone has to begin with one security group. You could create a new one, but at this point we are not going to do that. At this point we are not going to create a new security group. We'll use this security group and I'll show you why this matters. Okay, so let's review it. We want the Ubuntu machine. We want it as a spot instance. We do not have a preference of availability zone. We have the max price of $2 an hour. We have this key and that group. Okay. So at this point, so my request for spot is open. This is going to take us 5-6 minutes. So I can take a break and I can have you guys ask me more questions. In the meantime, I will also show you this concept of security group.
What is going to take 5 or 6 minutes?
For the machine to get ready and for Amazon to say, okay, I'm allocating this machine to you. It gives you a machine, slaps the entire Ubuntu server image on it, gives it the IP address, the whole processor and hard drive and all that, and then it says it's active.
Okay.
To bring it to an active state and to say that it has spawned a new machine, it takes 4 or 5 minutes. Sometimes it can take 10 seconds. There is no telling how much. But in the meantime, I can show you this security group. The way Amazon is architected, it is extremely secure by default. If you choose to lock yourself out, you can. By default, you are locked out. So eventually, you will need to access your box. How do you do that? You have to set up rules. See, right now, these are the rules. Not much. I want to create a rule where I can pretty much SSH into this box, right? I'm going to add the rule, apply the rule, okay? From any machine. Plus, I'm running this as a web server. I need port 80 to be opened for everybody. I need to add that rule and apply changes. Okay, see what happened here? It's opened up these ports for that security group. Okay, so if you were to run another machine that is MySQL, you only want to open up port 3306. You don't want any other port open. And you'll see how no other machine other than the web server will be able to contact the MySQL server when I do the MySQL server setup. So by default, all your Amazon instances are secure from ground up. You can choose to make it insecure by the things you do or that things you don't do. Okay, so let's check on our requests. Oh, it's already active. It's already spawned and it's up and running, right? So we have to go in our instance tab. It says it's initializing. You click on this and you get everything here. Okay?
Including the cost?
The cost is not here. I mean, the cost, right, as when we started it, was 0.6 cents an hour. So that still holds, right? So that you need to go to my account here, account activity.
Okay.
And that's probably after an hour of starting this. So I won't get this build probably for another hour. But there are very important things here. Look at this. It got spawned in US West 2A. This is the availability zone of my machine. So when I start my MySQL server, I will have it in that zone. It also tells you something else, very important. This is the public IP 50.11.112.42.77. That is the public IP of that machine for you. Okay? Right? So you need that. So let's try to log into our machine. So in order to log in, you remember we created a key? Do you remember what the name of the key was? Was it something like this? Mm-hmm. That's all good. See, I'll show you something. So SSH -I t1, and this is very important. Again, all the instances that Eric Hammond has built or that Canonical builds is for the username Ubuntu at something. Ubuntu at, this is the public DNS of the server. See what happens here. Oh, this might, no, this won't go through. Look at what happens. It's an unprotected file. It's file permissions for the, that's too open. So I need to change that. I'm in my machine. This is the Ubuntu server that we just spawned. Okay. So at this point, there are some standard things that I do. And I'm going to start doing them. Just run some upgrade and update commands. Okay. Then I need to install Apache, PHP, MySQL client, CURL, PHP 5GD, all that, right? For installing Apache 2, PHP 5 MySQL, Apache 2, mod PHP, MySQL client, CURL, libcurl, and bunch of that. Okay. Take a second here.
Is there any major differences between the Ubuntu server versus the Linux server?
Again, that's based on Red Hat and CentOS. I'm more comfortable with Ubuntu. That's all. That's all. It's my Ubuntu is my favorite distro.
The biggest difference is the package manager.
RPM versus this, yeah. After. Okay, so here, okay. Okay, so Apache was installed at var www. So let's see if the server is up. So we have Apache up. So let's see if the IP works. So we have that. Okay. The thing is not working.
So you didn't even have to configure Apache or any of that.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay, so I'm going to remove let's see if PHP works first also. Okay, so we'll move to, okay, this won't work. Obviously. Okay, that won't work either. That should do it, right? Okay. Stop doing that. Oh. That should. PHP works. All right. So now that we have this, let's see if we can even bring in the Drupal installer. So I'm going to get Drupal 7.10 is the latest. Okay, so I don't want to do that. Okay, we got that. We untar that, unzip that. Okay, then we move it. Okay, so hopefully this point why is that doing it? Okay. Okay, so before we start this, now we need our database. So this is where we go for RDS. We launch a MySQL server. The default. The smallest, m1.small. This is going to be 11 cents an hour. Okay, the database instance is 11 cents. I'm going to say no to this. So if for most of us, this is going to be no, or else a lot more money that you have to.
What is multi-AZ?
So it will put database. It allows the database to be migrated from US West to A to US West to B and things like that. You
So
don't want
multi-zone.
multi-zone. And I'm going to say no to a minor version upgrade. So the lowest is 5 GB. And we are going to say Drupal demo. Master user, AWS user. Master password. Okay.
So it's 11 cents an hour. Is that usage hour, or that's just as long as it's on every hour that you've got it enabled?
For the time it is on, you're getting charged. The moment you shut it down, it's gone. And you'll see that in a second. Drupal 710 710. Okay. This is very important. Now we choose this. You don't let Amazon decide. Don't say no preference. Explicitly we want this. Okay, continue. You can have automated backups for as much as 8 days. Why not? We'll use it. Free. Okay. Continue. I'm going to screenshot this so that and I'm going to make sure that I screenshotted it right. Yes, it did. Because if I forget, then I'm doomed. Okay. So this is going to take some time. So it's creating this instance. One of the first things it does, it brings it up and then backs the whole thing up. Okay.
Backs up a blank database?
Yes, it's not just a database. It has the whole database server, right? It is specialized for just MySQL, but it will come with the basic MySQL table, the test table, the blank Drupal table that Drupal 710. So this is going to take us a few seconds here.
So while that's doing that, back on your EC2s.
Okay.
So right now, for example, I've got I've got a virtual box VPN. So on my VPN, then I've got several different clients.
Where do you have this? Sorry.
Mine's on Liquid Web.
Okay.
So it's, $70 a month or whatever. Then I've got different installs in there.
Okay.
So with something like this, that EC2 tab, you could have different instances for each of those clients.
Exactly. So for every client, you have a $5 an hour t1.micro running, or $15 a month t1.micro on demand running for each client.
That's 11 cents an hour for the database. Or can they connect? No, each one would need its own database, right?
Each one, yes, but the server you can use this one server for multiple databases. We'll actually log into this database server. So you can put as many as you want. And this is an auto-expandable server. So I chose to be at 5 GB because I didn't want to incur more charges. You can when you run out of 5 GB, you can scale it up to 10 GB and you will still be okay. Okay? So
what it means by DB instance, it's really a database server instance.
However, the most important piece of this is it can only be logged in as an MySQL commands. You cannot SSH into it. You can MySQL into it. So the Unix management of the server is limits off of you, and only they are managing it. But the MySQL management is completely up to you. So you have super user rights to your MySQL instance. You can create, destroy, what have you on your database. There's nothing barring you from doing anything there. Why don't I have?
So when you said that, so that's what from the EC2, whatever instance you have, it can connect to a one of your multiples can connect to the same server instance.
Yes, the only thing that will change in the Drupal connection parameter, the database name will change.
Right. Just like
But your host string will remain same.
it's just like my local host.
Exactly. In this, and I made this mistake yesterday when I was trying to run through the presentation. And as we come to the database string on the Drupal installation side, okay, see, it's backing up right now. So here it will tell you, so database instance created, then it started the backup process. Okay, so there is also a concept, just as we opened up our web servers for port 80 and port 22 access, remember? So we could access our web server. We have to open up our database server to only access the web server. How do we do that? So by the time this is getting done, I'm going to bring you to this tab, EC2. I'm going to bring you to instances. Click on this. So you know that this is the public instance of public name for the server. Internal to Amazon, this is the private IP. Everything from now on, I want to reference this private IP. Okay, so that you're not going out and coming back in. So when I go back here, okay, this is available. So what does it say? This is my server name. This is my server host. 5GIB, all that good stuff. Now, I cannot access this place because I've not specified anything in the security group. No authorizations. I'm going to select IP based. I'm going to paste that private IP in /32. Authorized. Okay.
Now, if you had multiple EC2 instances,
Uh-huh.
I mean, you have to add their address to that in the database security, each individual one.
Yes. However, you can do all of this programmatically. AWS has an API. So your shell script, you can run a shell script,
Yeah.
and you can automatically, when an instance fires up, the whole thing that I'm doing, you can drive it. If you guys are shell script people who know that very well, the whole thing can be run through a shell script, Python script, a Ruby script, what have you. You would never have to come here to this console. But with automation, also comes a price of not knowing. You want, in the test run of automation, you want to make sure that the automation is doing exactly what you intended to do. Because there can be so many unintended consequences here. Right? Because you open up a wrong port. A hacker has an access. You fire up more servers than you want. You end up with a big bill at the end of the month. Right? So you want to be very judicious about this. Okay, so let's see if this works. Let's see if we can connect. Stop. MySQL -h. This -u plus user -p. Okay. So that's our Drupal 7.10 that we created. Connect to Drupal. Okay. It's an empty set. All right. So at least we know we have connection. We can reach that place. So I think we can start this now. Okay. Okay. Standard. So let's make sure that we code library. Okay. So what is it saying? CD site. Make dir files. Word minus r. Oh, that's a good. If I would remember. Okay. Then default settings. Let's see if this works. It's not writable. Okay. Okay. Whew. What was our name? Drupal 7.10. Stop. Okay. I didn't want that. I want this. Right? Okay. Please do it. It worked better last night. Okay. Okay. Well, in that case,
What did it say?
it's not connecting to the database. Okay. Let's try going through this. Okay, Drupal demo this. Okay. Database name Drupal 7.10. I think that was it. Drupal 7.10.
You don't need the slash 32, right?
No, it shouldn't. Okay, let's see if this. Okay. Whew. I'm way over my time. Am I not?
Now, why did you not run MySQL in the same server?
You could,
You could. Oh, okay.
but this gives it a true end-tier architecture,
Oh, okay.
right? So your database server is independent of your web and app server.
So he can spin up more Drupal
Yeah.
instances, basically connect to.
But if you were just doing one,
Okay.
there's no reason you couldn't do that.
This is Tri Valley, TUG, AWS, t1.micro, RDS, demo. Okay. Okay. Drupal on AWS EC2.